All right, so you know how much we love getting our hands dirty, right? Well, today we're swapping our shovels for controllers.
Or maybe a well-placed arrow.
Yeah, exactly. We're diving into the latest adventures of gaming's favorite archaeologist. But hold on to your hats,
Yeah.
because this time, she's gone animated.
Buckle up, everyone.
Yeah. It's a deep dive into Netflix's Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft. And let me tell you, the online chatter is a real mix of treasure and, well, let's just say some booby traps, too.
We've certainly got a collection of relics to sort through for this one.
We do. We've got those hard-hitting IMDb stats,
Yeah.
a user review that could make a mummy blush,
Oh, this one is special.
and even a peek behind the curtain with the showrunner herself.
It's always fascinating to get those insights, hear directly from the source.
Absolutely. So look, we all know Lara Croft. No need to dust off the history books here. She's the queen of dual pistols and impossible escapes, a legend for a reason. But this Netflix series, it's taking a page from the video game reboot trilogy, which, as you might recall, shook things up a bit.
It really did.
Yeah. So the big question is, does Lara's animated debut raid those expectations, or is it a tomb best left unexplored?
Well, let's start with those IMDb numbers. 6.1 out of 10. Now, I'm not saying it's cursed, but that's not exactly the holy grail of readings either, is it?
No, it's not setting the internet on fire, that's for sure. But it's not exactly trapped in the shadowy depths of internet obscurity either.
No, that's a good point.
Right. What really gets me, though, more than 1,600 users felt it was, worthy of clicking those stars.
Right, right.
But only 33 actually left written reviews. Now that, my friend, is what we call a head-scratcher.
It's a curious ratio, isn't it? It really makes you think. In this age of, instant opinions and internet hot takes, that silence, it practically echoes in the chamber, doesn't it?
Like, maybe those viewers escaped the tomb, but they weren't in a hurry to tell anyone about it.
Right. Maybe. Or could it be that the show just falls into this weird middle ground? It's like it's entertaining enough to binge while you're folding laundry, but not quite, shall we say, captivating enough to inspire passionate reviews. Good or bad?
Like, you're not turning it off, but you're also not texting your best friend about the plot twists.
Precisely. The streaming equivalent of a comfortable silence? Not awkward, but not exactly a cliffhanger either.
Right, right.
But let's not forget about those who did feel strongly enough to leave their mark, eh?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of strong feelings, we found one review in particular. Oh, boy, this one takes detailed critique to a whole new level.
It's an adventure in itself just to read it.
It really is.
Yeah.
So they call out Lara's, how do they put it? Lara's actions are superhuman to a comical degree. And look, I get it. We all suspend our disbelief a bit for Tomb Raider, right? I mean, she jumps chasms, grapples at walls. It's part of the fun. But this reviewer, even they had their limits, apparently.
Somewhere out there's a line, and even Lara can cross it.
Exactly. But what could possibly be so over the top, so unbelievable, that it makes you laugh instead of gasp? What do you think? Are we talking like Lara dodging poison darts while doing her taxes?
Maybe she's outrunning a giant boulder while also trying to remember her grocery list.
Or, I don't know, single-handedly rebuilding a collapsed temple while also, like, on a Zoom meeting with her accountant.
Now that's an image.
The possibilities are endless. But hold on, this reviewer wasn't finished. They go on to describe the plot as, and I quote, riddled with holes. And they use the phrase hilariously bad, which I have to admit made me laugh out loud.
A little dramatic flair in a review never hurt anyone.
No, not at all. It makes you wonder, though, about those moments in shows where logic takes a backseat for whatever reason.
We've all been there. It's like the writers took a wrong turn in the tomb and ended up in a completely different genre.
Right. 1 minute, Lara is deciphering ancient glyphs, and the next, boom, she's sipping tea across the globe with zero explanation. It's jarring.
It's like those old adventure serials where they just glued two different film reels together and hoped no one would notice.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Even with all this criticism, there's a glimmer, a tiny ember of praise for the animation itself. They call it decent at the very least, which, let's be honest, in the savage world of online reviews, that practically qualifies as a standing ovation, doesn't it?
It does. It's like finding a pristine artifact in a tomb full of, well, less than stellar pottery.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, can strong visuals, even in a fictional world, hold our attention even if the story itself falters?
Fascinating. It's like they say, presentation is everything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe those visuals, even if the story's a bit shaky, they kind of distract you from, well, the cracks in the foundation.
It's an interesting thought. We do accept a certain level of, let's say, creative liberty when it comes to animation, don't we?
Right.
So maybe those striking visuals, they give the audience a bit more leeway to overlook a narrative hiccup or two. We're caught up in the spectacle, the artistry of it all.
Makes you wonder, do you think that's something specific to animation? Or do we see that with live action stuff too? I mean, do big explosions make up for a thin plot? I don't know. It's something to think about. But
That's so.
for now, let's move away from those anonymous reviews, shall we? Because we've got an actual insider to hear from.
Ah, yes, time to go behind the scenes.
Exactly. We've got a snippet from an interview with the showrunner herself, Tasha Huo. And here's the kicker. She's a lifelong Tomb Raider fan.
Now that's fascinating. You'd think a lifelong fan would be the perfect person to, translate a beloved character to a new medium. They'd understand the assignment, right?
You'd think so, right? But, and there's always but isn't there, who was interested in exploring a different side of Lara? Like, what's her life like outside of those tombs? The everyday moments we don't usually get to see in the games.
That's a really interesting choice, especially given that criticism we talked about earlier about Lara being, well, almost unbelievably capable. Maybe there's a disconnect there between what some viewers expect from a Tomb Raider story, especially if they're coming from the games, and what Who was trying to do with the series.
It's that eternal adaptation dilemma, isn't it? How do you honor the source material, that legacy, but also do something new, something unexpected? And what does ordinary life even look like for someone who routinely outruns collapsing buildings? I mean, really.
It's a good question. Does Lara do her own laundry after fighting a mythical beast? Does she get annoyed by a slow Wi-Fi connection like the rest of us? I need answers.
Right. Maybe she has this super specific coffee order that completely throws the barista for a loop because it's so, well, normal.
Now there's a thought. Seeing those little relatable struggles in a character we consider larger than life. But this tension between expectation and what we actually get, it's not unique to Tomb Raider. Not at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Think about all those comic book adaptations that have, shall we say, sparked some spirited debates online.
Oh, absolutely. And often those disagreements, they come down to differing expectations. What works in one medium, like a video game where you are Lara, you're in control of the action, that might not translate smoothly to something like a show where you're more of a passive viewer. It's a different experience.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you, dear listener, as you're navigating the often treacherous tombs of online reviews? We've got lukewarm ratings, a showrunner with a distinct vision, and a legacy that everyone wants a piece of. What stands out to you?
This is where that critical thinking comes in handy. It's easy to get swept up in the hype, or the disappointment, depending on who you're talking to. But I think it's important to remember that every single piece of media, every adaptation, it's the result of countless decisions, interpretations, creative choices.
It's like we go in with our own mental picture of what it should be, right? Our own hopes, our own interpretations.
Absolutely, and sometimes those pictures match up perfectly, and sometimes, well, they send us down totally different paths.
Which brings us to our final treasure in this deep dive. I feel like we've dug into the ratings, dusted off those reviews, even gotten a glimpse behind the curtain with the showrunner.
But like any good excavation, we're left with even more questions, new mysteries to ponder.
So here's something to think about as you're deciding if this Tomb Raider series is worth your time. What if Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider herself, had to deal with, I don't know, everyday problems? What would be her biggest struggle outside of raiding tombs?
No, that's a question. Would it be those airport security lines with all of her, shall we say, unusual artifacts?
Oh, getting flagged by TSA every time. I can see it now.
Or maybe she's constantly maxing out her credit cards on archaeological gear. Those satellite phones and grappling hooks don't come cheap.
Oh, I bet. And then she's trying to explain it to her credit card company like, no, those are essential expenses.
Ancient artifact acquisition. It's for a project.
Exactly. Or maybe, okay, hear me out here. Maybe she's that friend, the one, who's constantly jet lagged but still somehow makes it to every single event, every gathering.
Oh, the irony. The world's greatest adventurer taken down by a missed connection.
Right. I'd watch that. There's a whole sitcom in there somewhere, I'm telling you. But that's what's so great about a character like Lara Croft, right? She's iconic, yeah, but she's also this blank slate in a way.
Totally. We can project our own ideas onto her, imagine her in these everyday situations. That's the power of a good character, I think.
It really is. And with that, adventurers, we've reached the end of another deep dive. We've unearthed all the buzz around Tomb Raider, the legend of Lara Croft, from the ratings to the reviews to even imagining Lara battling a coffee shortage.
Remember, whether you choose to watch is up to you. But hopefully this deep dive gave you a little something extra to think about.
Exactly. Until next time, happy exploring.